Hello and happy April Fools. I'm Colum Coleman and this is Historical Humans Reads. Here at Historical Humans, we often commentate, to use a thesaurus or two, on the cultures that are not our own. So for today, we thought we would read to you an example of how to view anthropology when it comes to speaking about another culture. Or maybe it was an example of how not to view anthropology. It's so easy to skip over all the little words. What we have for you today is an introduction provided in the work More Aboriginal Stories of Australia. This work was compiled by A.W. Reid and published posthumously by Reid Books in 1980. Without any more ado, let's get into it. In recent years, there has been increased interest in the Australian Aboriginals, who at one time were regarded as so primitive in their outlook and culture that little purpose was to be served by investigating or preserving their anthropological record. It is only when we are in danger of losing something that we begin to value it. And the large numbers of books describing the life, customs, arts, and skills of the Aboriginals is ample proof of this renewal of interest. It is important that white Australians should appreciate the wealth of imagination displayed in Aboriginal legend. It is part of the literature of Australia. We shall not put roots down into the soil until we have incorporated their folklore into the indigenous literature of the southern continent and can see the land through the eyes of the primitive, clever, imaginative people who had to fight to gain their nourishment from Mother Earth. It is remarkable that in an environment of desert wastes and infertile soil, as well as in well-watered country, the imagination of the Aboriginals should produce tales that are both beautiful and amusing, and that they should find human characteristics and poetry in bird and beast, in the sky above them, in sun, moon, and stars, and even in reptiles and insects. They lived close to the soil, these children of nature. They were dependent on her for sustenance, and in the teeming animal life and in the barren places alike, they found evidence of the work of a creator spirit and the promise of Bulima, the afterlife, where game abounded, there was soft grass to lie on, refreshing streams and soft breezes. From their physical needs, a majestic conception of nature was evolved, with beneficent spirit ancestors and the corresponding spirits of evil that are inimical to mankind. The legends contained in this book have been gathered from many different sources. It is a comprehensive collection which originated among different tribes and can be regarded as a typical sampling of the beliefs of Aboriginals in every part of Australia. Coming from widely divergent sources, it is natural that there should be some inconsistencies and contradictory elements. This is particularly the case in creation myths and the folklore concerning animals when the land was still in the dream time. From some legends, we learn that animals and insects were brought to life by the touch of Yi, the sun goddess, and that man, the final creation, was made in the bodily and mental form of Ba'ame, the great spirit. Other widespread legends say that all living things first took the form of men and gradually achieved individual characteristics as animals. This is a reasonable explanation of the origin of totemism, which exercised a considerable influence on Aboriginal life. It is a vast subject, especially as totemism took different forms in various parts of the country. The presentation of myths and legends in a form which is acceptable to the present day must necessarily depart from the spirit of the eternal dreamtime in many respects. To the Aboriginal, the stories were not simply pleasant tales to beguile the evening hours. As Professor A.P. Elkin remarked, mythology is not just a matter of words and records, but of action and life. For the cult societies, the totemic lodges do not spend their time at meetings reciting and chanting only. They also reenact myths, and do so because the heroes and ancestors were, in their belief, actual persons and totemic beings. What they did in the course of their labors must now be done in ritual, and the places associated with them must be visited and cared for. For the most part, the details of any myth are only important because they enable the present-day men to walk the path with fidelity, which leads into the sacred dream time, the source of life. So far as possible, continuity of theme runs through this collection, but because of the widespread origin of the tales, the reader should consider each legend as a self-contained narrative without attempting to put it in the context of other stories in the same chapter. For this reason, animals sometimes appear as men, and other times in their natural form. Similarly, there are several conceptions of the Father God, the Great Spirit, Bayame. In some, he is a culture hero, father and creator of his people, towards whom created man aspires. In others, he is a great Ririnun, plagued by faithless and foolish wives. The value of this compilation may well lie in its representative nature. With hundreds of tribes and hundreds of languages, there was no homogeneity of nomenclature, but there was a common ethos which can be readily found by sampling the variant legends of different tribes. An arbitrary selection of Aboriginal names for living creatures has been made and adhered to throughout in order to avoid confusion. But it will be appreciated that such names varied according to tribe and locality. A glossary of names and Aboriginal terms is given in an appendix. Many books have been used freely as source material, but variant accounts have been compared and tales rewritten in a form that it is hoped will appeal to the readers of the present time. The modern version of Mrs. Langlo Parker's books of Ualai tradition, edited by H. Drake Brockman and published by Inglis and Robertson in 1953, are particularly valuable. Myths and Legends of the Australian Aboriginals by Dr. W. Ramsay Smith and published by George G. Harrop and Company in 1930 is the largest collection previously published. Despite an apparently benevolent intention, Reed's language indicates that he considered the Aboriginals to be an inferior and monolithic culture that he was saving and whose cultural stories it was his right to alter as he saw fit. This is not how you view anthropology, at least not how you should if you intend to do good anthropology. If you enjoyed this video and would like to hear more excerpts from original texts, please follow or subscribe to your platform of choice. If there is a work you would like to hear, be sure to like the video and leave a comment below. Thank you for watching, and happy April Fools. Hope you learned something.